Hello, it's future Jamie here. I'm filming this right at the end and I'm coming in right at the start here just to say sorry this video is so long, and I want to tell you up front what you're about to get in this video so you can decide whether to spend the time watching it because it's crazy long. This is not a tutorial. This is not kind of, how to make any particular things. This is very much me working things out as I go, making a lot of mistakes, and spoiler alert, there are plenty of them, and I share all those in the video. But you'll kind of hear me a few times in this video say this is a bit like therapy for me, getting this out. Being able to just record all this stuff I found it a really useful exercise, but I'm sorry if it's not necessarily like your normal kind of YouTube video. Despite all of that, there are actually quite a few kind of tips and techniques and different bits in there that are probably useful, a few tool recommendations here and there. It's all in the context of whatever I'm doing at the time, so it's a bit higgledy-piggledy. But this was a huge project for me. This spanned over 2 months. It was kind of July to September 2024, and it started with one of those ideas you have in the middle of the night that just strikes you at like 2 in the morning, or struck me at 2 in the morning. And I just couldn't sleep the rest of the night for thinking about it. I think I'd watched a video from the Evening Woodworker, which I'll link to in the description, where he'd been talking about shop storage. Sorry if you can hear a cat meowing there. There's quite a lot of cat interludes interspersed in this video as well, so that's probably beefed the length up a bit. The cat's at the window there. Hang on, I'll just let her in. Come on. Yeah, there we are. There's quite a lot of that in this video, just cats interrupting me while I work. Anyway, this video from the Evening Woodworker, he'd basically been saying, get rid of all your storage boxes for tools, those plastic kind of briefcase type things that tools come in. Get rid of them, you don't need them. And he's quite right, because I store most of my stuff on the wall back there. By the way, there's a tantalising sneak peek of what I build in this video there for you. I can see it all in front of me and I'm very happy with it. Anyway, yeah, so get rid of all the storage boxes. And I had all my storage boxes on a metal rack that was all along that wall there. And I thought to myself, if I get rid of that metal rack, get rid of those storage boxes, I could make a Mitre saw ball. And that was the kind of acorn that started quite a big project, because I ended up doing the whole garage pretty much. So despite the length of this video, believe it or not, quite a lot of stuff actually happens off camera, because the kind of prerequisite for making the space to do everything I wanted to do was I had to get a new shed, replace the shed at the bottom of the garden. Most of that happens off camera. There's a few bits of the shed in it, but not much. So yeah, most of this video is me filming just the kind of mistakes, the noteworthy bits. I'm not trying to teach you every single thing as I go along, because there's plenty of videos about making cabinets and drawers and things like that. But it's still very long, and I apologise for that, and I'm sorry. Anyway, I'll stop waffling now. Let's go back in time, and I'll talk about, I'm going to jump into the video with me talking you through the garage and what I want to do and my plans are. And at that point in time, I didn't really know everything I wanted to do. So spoiler alert, as I say, I'm working it out as I go along. Anyway, let's go back in time to me talking about that, and then I'll come back at the end for some final thoughts. I'll tell you what everything cost and all of that gubbins, and come back at the end. Here we go. So essentially, I just want to get rid of this whole metal rack, and I'll get rid of this kind of IKEA unit here as well. I'm going to build 3 units. The middle one will be at the right level so that the Mitre saw, the bed of the Mitre saw, sits at the worktop height. However, the worktop height is going to be the same height as these 3 things here. I built these recently. They're just plywood drawer boxes. They just slide in and out, but it just allows me to have the worktop at a nice high height. I'm 6'4". This is 108 centimeters up to this top, which I think is great for me. Got storage immediately underneath in all the drawers, so I'm going to build another drawer there, another drawer there. I'm going to fill that corner in with a bit of worktop that sort of joins both of them, which is removable, so I can get under it for storage. So yeah, copy these up to a certain point. I'm going to be more lazy, but you'll see in a sec, because I've already started that a little bit before I decided to start filming all this. And then I will have 3 units here. I'm going to make them out of ply because, yeah, it's a bit more expensive than MDF, but I just like the look of ply as a top more and for the stuff, so I'm going to do that. Treat myself, why not? So anyway, yeah, at the same level as that, continuing all the way around the corner, all the way along there, that will be a unit of drawers. Then, let's say, the Mitre saw unit in the middle, another unit of drawers. However, the 2 on the left, the Mitre saw unit and the drawers on the left, I'm going to have storage underneath, so there'll be 60 centimetres of clearance at the bottom for sort of general gubbins storage before I get to the drawers. The Mitre saw will only have room for like a couple of drawers underneath, but the other one should have room for a bit more. Then obviously the worktop, which will be at the same height as the Mitre saw bed, and then I'm going to have some upright bits, a bit of wood on the wall behind just for some tool storage similar to this stuff, and then a shelf at the top similar to the top shelf there, so that I can sort of clamp clamps onto the end and use that again for a bit more storage. I'm also going to put these lights in there, although I've already made a boo-boo in that these units are going to be 900 each, so it'll be 900, 900, 900, and these lights are wider than 900, so when I do the uprights for the shelf at the top, I'm probably going to have to like cut a hole in the middle or something to get a light through it. I don't know, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. This is my Mitre saw. It is huge. I'm going to need the full 900 for the width, purely because, although I don't need these anymore to extend out because I will have the worktop instead, what I am going to do, in order to do like a Mitre stop, a lot of people use this stuff, this T-track, and do like a flip-up stop. I'm going to use the fact that I've got the MatchFit MicroJig system, so I'm going to route that into the worktop either side, and in order to have the space to get one of these clamps in and start sliding it along either side, I need a bit of extra space. So the full 900, so the whole unit is basically going to be low. So the units on either side will be at the worktop height. This one will be low. I'm not going to film every step of the way because, you know, there's hundreds of videos on YouTube of people making cabinets and drawers. I'm just going to be copying some of them, and I'll kind of mention what I'm doing as I go along, but I'm not going to do like full tutorial. I will film any problems I come across, anything I do slightly differently, anything that might be interesting, anything worth noting. And just moving all this stuff is huge. I mean, I'm basically replacing the shed at the end of the garden with a new shed, a bigger shed, purely so I can get some of the gardening stuff out here to create the space to move this racking over to the other side to free up that wall. So there's an awful lot of stuff here. I've got to get the best space for a shed laid, put the shed together, start moving stuff in there, move this over there, shuffle everything around in the workshop, and make a load of stuff, more than I've ever made cabinetry wise before. So it will be a long video, even just showing you the mistakes and the things of note and not showing you every single step of the way. This is going to be a long video. So settle in, and thanks for clicking. So I've already discovered my first mistake. As you can see, these screws are piercing through the sides because I drilled the hole slightly too deep, because I didn't realise that I had the collar on the drill bit set slightly too deep. So that's my fault. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a diamond file here. I'm going to file off the sharp point, and then I'll just sand the screws down a bit. I'm filing off the point so it doesn't rip up my sandpaper when I try and do it. Hey ho, that's my fault. What I will say though is that I am absolutely loving this Craig 720 jig with its auto thing. Obviously you still have to set the collar on the drill properly, which I didn't, but this, I would say, I've got two tools that I would say are genuinely dust free. This one and the Festool DF500 Domino. Both of them completely dust free, not a speck of dust when you're using them. Absolutely amazing, really happy with that. Obviously not happy with my ability to use it here, but you know, that's me. All right, they're constructed. They're not fixed down, they still need a sand down, but let me just talk through the differences because they obviously are different to these three existing ones here. So these three I made with Dominoes, and you know, tried to do a decent job of it because I was interested. These I'm just trying to bash together. So you can see I've used pocket screws. I've possibly gone a bit crazy with pocket screws. Another mistake, I forgot to put the pocket screws along the bottom there, so I've ended up just nailing the bottom of that. The other thing is the construction of these ones, I've rebaited the base of the drawer into the sides so you don't see the base at the front, whereas these ones I couldn't be asked to do that. So you can see the base there at the front. Obviously with these ones I used a Forstner bit, did two holes, connected them with a jigsaw to have a slot at the front. These ones I couldn't be asked, I've just done one hole. To be honest though, dust does get in these quite a bit, so maybe having a smaller hole will help a little bit with dust. I did put a round over on them, but it's pretty shonky to be honest. As I say, they still need a sand down. The big thing though that I've noticed is the difference. Both of these plywoods are from B&Q. This one, by my count, has 7 layers and this one has 5. Feel free to pause it and tell me if I've made a mistake. This is a much nicer, or well, I wouldn't say much, but it's a good bit nicer to work with. This, pretty horrific really. Both bought from B&Q because I'm just a hobbyist and I need them to do the free cuts on their panel saws to get stuff in the car for me. But yeah, those plywoods are not good. The top on this one I've made from 18mm. This is mostly 12mm for all of these. But because I'm going to do that, where is it? Do one of these MatchFit grooves all along from the Mitre saw. I've done the top in 18mm here so that I can route that groove. I'm going to make another bit of 18mm to cover there, put some supports all around so that I can put that over the top as a kind of enclosed bit with a sort of continuous worktop then going round. Incidentally, by the way, this 18mm top is actually 2 bits of 9mm laminated together because I got a great deal on an offcut of 9mm. Although interestingly, that 9mm, so as I said, 7 layers apply here, 5 layers apply here. The 9mm I've got that I laminated together is this, and this is also 5 layers. So the same number of layers in this 9mm as in that 12mm. So something I'll be keeping an eye out for in B&Q in future is just to see exactly how many layers are in it. Anyway, this ain't birch ply, this is just shop furniture, who cares? So, they're done. I'm going to give them a quick sand and then fix them down. Oh, you'll see when I do the sanding. I bought myself one of these posh active respirators because I've got a beard. I was never really, it's already a bit dusty as you can see. I was never really feeling like these masks, which is also JSP. Never really felt like it did a good enough job. So, yeah, really happy with this. Definitely recommend it. Not cheap, obviously, but you know, can't put price in your lungs and all that. Also, I did have to buy different ear defenders. So these ones go around the back of your neck. That's what that wire strip is, so that they don't interfere with that. But yeah, they were like cheap. They were about 20 quid or something. This obviously wasn't. It was about 300. But yeah, really happy with it. They are sanded and waxed. Now to fix them down. What I have when I'm fixing them down, I don't know if you can see here, but this isn't even, doesn't really come out in the video, but trust me, there's about a 2 or 3mm step down there. And I had the same thing with the backs of these. So what I've got is these little plastic wedges. I find these quite useful. They're dead cheap, come in big packets. And you can basically snap them off, so whichever ones you need, I dare say I won't need the smallest one, you can just snap them off by hand and wedge them underneath things if you need to shim things. I mean, you could just cut wooden shims, of course, but I find these dead handy. So I've got that corner piece done there. So the extra bit of worktop, I just made a crappy cardboard template, sort of scribed it against the wall because this isn't obviously a 90-degree angle and stuff, like nothing is it? It's just held with some battens screwed into the various bits there at the moment, as you can see. Obviously, as you can see, it's removable, so I can get to it. It is a bit more of a loose fit than I was hoping for, but I knew I'd never be able to get it like super tight. I do need to come up with a way of making it tight though, because I'm going to be routing the MatchFit grooves for the MatchFit clamps all along here for the repeatable stops. Once you have to imagine I've got this Mitre station done, obviously. Going to be a MatchFit groove routed all the way along, including through here, which is why I went for 18mm, or as I say, 2 times 9mm laminated. In order for those repeatable cuts, I can't have it wiggling about like that. It has to be soft. So what I'll probably do is put threaded inserts into a couple of the battens. I'm just going to do a couple because I don't want to be too much of a faff to take off and on. And then I'll just screw it down in place, and then it won't move. It'll be good enough for repeatable cuts on a Mitre saw. So that's that corner done. So I've got continuous worktop with drawer storage immediately underneath all the way around here. These two come out nicely. I mean, this has got a hell of a lot of weight with these clamps. You can't feel it, but that weighs a ton. But it holds nicely because it's all screwed down. This one doesn't have anything in yet, but I'm sure I'll fill that soon enough. And then, yeah, most of the time I will probably not keep this bolted down in the threaded inserts because why bother? I want to be able to lift it off. But on the rare occasions I need a long enough stop that I have to go all the way up to there, then I can bolt it down. The unglamorous reality now is that in order to do all that, I obviously need to get some materials. I need a load of plywood delivered. The only place I've got to store a load of plywood, even though I've got a lot of space here, is on these trestles. Incidentally, these roughneck trestles are amazing. These are the C700. I'll do a little bit on the video when I can get to them. But I built this outdoor cat house. There's the roof, there's the thing. This weighs an absolute ton. This was the project I had on the go before I had the idea for the Mitre saw wall. And obviously as soon as I had the idea, I couldn't wait to get finished with this. My wife said she was going to paint it, but she hasn't had time. So I need to get it painted, get it out of the workshop, and then I can use that for storing my sheet goods and get back to work. So this will probably take me like a week or something. So let's see how we go. So the cat house is finished. We've gone for our usual bold colours. I'm filming this about 2 weeks later because it took about a week to paint it, and then we went on holiday for a week. So it's been outside for 24 hours. Obviously the cats haven't set foot in it. So yeah, brilliant, pleased I bothered. Anyway, excitingly though, down the bottom of the garden, oh, there's a cat just there. You gonna go in your cat house? Ungrateful little shit. Anyway, excitingly, down the bottom of the garden, you gonna go in your cat house? No, probably not, probably never. Anyway, we've got a nice concrete pad for a new shed. Oh, there's the other one. So yeah, shed's arriving tomorrow. Gone for a plastic one, gone for a Keta Oakland 3.5 metre by 2.3 metre, I think, shed. The doors will face this way, the doors are on the long side. So that's 3 cardboard boxes weighing a total of 200 kilos arriving tomorrow. And let me just pop in the garage. Right. Okay. Bit of a mess in here at the moment. I'll show you those in a sec because I'm going to get the plywood on there. So I was thinking that metal racking there, I would move over this side because all that gardening stuff is going to go in the shed, and hopefully that ladder. But now that metal racking will actually fit in the shed sideways, so it won't be on the long face, which is great. So I'm going to move that into the shed, and I've decided to do even more units along here. So you can see I've got a door unit and a drawer unit from the old kitchen there already. I'm going to put another drawer unit, another door unit, and then on top of it, instead of having the worktop straight away, I'm going to make a nearly 3 metre length of horizontal wood storage with like a sliding bed, though I can pull it out and see what scraps I've got, long strips. Then on top of that, and a worktop, and then on top of that, some shelves. Obviously the kind of false worktop, that's me doing air quotes, false worktop that goes on top of the horizontal bit of storage has to be a 3 metre, nearly 3 metre uninterrupted span with no support in the middle. So I'm going to have to use CLS for the frame, which will make it a bit, a bit tricky. I think I'm going to lose a little bit of vertical space. But anyway, exciting times. So I'm aware, hang on, let me turn the camera off. I'm acutely aware this video is becoming a bit of a vanity thing for me rather than it is entertainment for you. I'm sorry about that, it's going to be long. I doubt anyone's going to watch this, but it's just kind of therapy for me to get these thoughts out. You probably just want to see me getting on with it though, so I'm going to stop talking now, and I'll next do some filming when I've actually got something to do. Oh no, one thing I said I would show you these Toughbuilt trestles because they are amazing. So like I say, most trestles that have the ability to put the wood at the side, most of them just hold it level with the top of the trestle itself. But if you were doing a long rip cut with a track saw along this way, you might cut into the metal of the trestle or whatever material the trestle's made from. So what these have got, which is amazing, is you can fix these here. They're screwed from underneath. Those aren't going anywhere, they're screwed down. You can flip this up, put the wood on top, lock it in, and now that is level, flush, well, flush enough, you know, it's not perfect, but flush enough with the top of that. And I haven't seen any other trestles that do that. So yeah, I'm getting a ton of plywood delivered tomorrow. It's all going to go on there. Hopefully I'll be able to get it cut up. Anyway, shut up now. And the shed has been delivered. and it's covered in plastic, which is great because I was going to put a tarp over it. Well, I still am, but don't necessarily have to. You could leave it out in the rain for a bit if you needed to. The guys managed to bring it all the way up there, which is no mean feat because it's 233 kilos all in. So let's hope I get a shed up soon. Excuse the road noise, but the shed's built. Look at that. For a plastic shed, I'm pretty happy. It's been another couple of weeks since the video I did when the shed was delivered. Hello, there I am. Let me show you what I've managed to cram into it. Yeah, for a plastic shed, pretty happy with it. So, hanging storage on the right, shelves on the left. That is the metal racking that was in my garage. It only just fits. I had to make these weird little brackets because there's a plastic lip around here, and I had to make a bracket to go over the top of that. But it does fit. You see I've got my big ladder in here. That's a 2.4 metre high step ladder. 2.4 metres is the actual height. I know sometimes with step ladders they measure differently. Got the wheelbarrow in, got my step stool, got my telescopic ladder in here. Got my pressure washer. I've got my kind of four-wheel trolley cart thing that I got from Costco years ago. It's quite handy sometimes. So yeah, and plenty of space. Good amount of floor space left, bit of shelf space left, bit of hanging space left, shelves for small bits. So yeah, this has all come out of the garage. Let me just show you what the garage looks like now this has all come out. Right, so the garage is currently looking pretty spacious, although I am using a wide angle lens, but you can see the metal racking's all gone there. Making way for the cabinets I'm going to make. All of my kind of hanging storage there. Still got the wood on the wall for it, but I'm going to make way for the cabinets to be built there. Hang on, let me turn the camera around. As I said, I'm not going to show every step of making cabinets because there's so many videos on YouTube about making cabinets already. I'll just kind of mention any notable bits and pieces and kind of interesting bits along the way, hopefully. So yeah, progress. A couple of days later, I've made something. I think I forgot to say, but I bought a new table saw while I've been doing all this. In addition to buying a shed, putting up a shed, fitting out the shed, I got rid of my old Rage 5S and I've bought one of the new TBL Pluses. Been lucky enough to get one, which has been excellent. I've been really impressed. It's dead on accurate out of the box. I did a test cut of exactly 100 mils to try and adjust this thing because it's so easy. You just loosen that and move it sideways to adjust it to whatever the actual dimension of the cut is. And I didn't need to, it was dead on accurate. But anyway, you don't need me to tell you how to throw together some CLS and some MDF to make a little stand. That's all pretty standard stuff. But the reason I'm filming is, so where these bolts go through here, I've got this kind of OSB plate sitting on top of the MDF, but it goes through, inside the OSB, there's a threaded insert mounted underneath. It goes through that and then acts as a kind of micro adjuster so that I can get the top, hang on, let me grab a bit of MDF, so that I can get the top perfectly flush with my workbench. And then I've got these little stops here just to stop it. If I was cutting a particularly difficult piece of wood and it wanted to slide off the top or something, then those stops are there to stop it happening. There's two of them. But yeah, and the threaded insert is mounted from the bottom. So what I mean is, got the OSB, this is 15 mil, not 18 mil, that's 18 mil, but anyway, I've mounted the threaded inserts that way, so that if there is any force, significant force pushing down, I mean that table saw isn't actually that heavy, it doesn't weigh that much, but if there were any significant weight pushing down on it, it's pushing the insert into the wood rather than trying to pull the insert out of the wood. If it was mounted on top, it would be pushing it down like that way. I did have a bit of a faff. I tried to use some 5-minute epoxy to make sure these were good and solidly mounted in, and realised that the hole I drilled for these was slightly too small. It was chewing up the wood, and I had an absolute panic as the 5-minute epoxy was starting to set, and I just had to drill out all the holes quickly. And I'm not sure that, in fact, I'm pretty sure there's no real epoxy left in those holes now because I had to scrape it out. But seemed to get a good fixing anyway. If you go for these silver ones, okay, so these are the M6 versions. I've got M8 in the OSB. Excuse the fact that I hit myself with a hammer while I was building the shed. These gold ones with the broken threads around them are crap. They're really thin and they just twist and break. These sort of silver ones with the solid thread all the way around are much better, so go for these ones. So yeah, very happy with that table saw. I had to build that because I need that to do all the cabinetry, and like I say, I've got rid of my old Rage 5S, so I'll be using that. So yeah, now time to actually start breaking down some plywood sheets for the cabinets, so very exciting. Right, I've cut, labelled and dominoed a load of pieces for this wall along here. I haven't started on anything for that wall yet. I'm doing this wall first. But I was doing a dry fit with these pieces, with the dominoes, and they were really tight. And it's the first time I've done it in plywood, well, 18mm plywood anyway. I've done 12mm plywood. I've done it in 18mm MDF before, and I wondered whether it was just plywood. But what it was, hang on, check this out. So this is a 5mm domino. 5x30, and it's 5.3. Now I assume they weren't manufactured like that. I'm guessing that they must have swollen or something, but I mean, it's pretty dry in here. It doesn't really get too cold. Anyway, some people have said that if you stick these in the microwave, not the camera there, if you stick them in the microwave they get better. So let's have a go with this one. Right, this little domino has had 10 seconds in the microwave, which might have been too much because it was starting to smoke. 5.23, so microwaving them does work, but it's 0.07 of a mil. I'd still say 5.23 is probably a bit much. I'll just leave them out, see if they dry. I'm just gonna have to go through with my calipers and find the thinnest dominoes, I think. Oh well, fun jobs. So I've got the cabinet carcass dry fitted at the moment. That was not easy. I'm having to use clamps to get it together. I've never had that with dominoes before. But like actually having to use the clamps to pull it together on a dry fit is tight. But one thing I thought I'd mention is I made myself these little drill guides. So basically the idea is I use I use screws as well as dominoes. So what I do is dominoes are there for most of the strength, alignment, etc. Hold it together. But then I drill pilot holes through and screw it together so that kind of acts as a clamp while the glue dries, but also a bit of extra strength as well. And this one's for 18mm stock, and it's basically allows me to hold it up to the side, and then hang on, I'll do it the other way around. And then when I go through the holes, I'm putting the hole basically 9mm inbound from the edge, so it'll be centered on the thing. I basically made this block, so I've got 2mm, 3mm, and 4mm holes on it. It's 2 lots of 12mm, so 24mm thick there, then just 12mm there. Just hold it on the edge, oh, not that way. Hold it on the edge and just drill through, and then get your pilot hole aligned. And then when I take it all apart after the dry fit, for these faces I'll drill through with a 4mm so that the screw actually pulls tight together, if that makes sense. I'm maybe not explaining that well. But basically to get this straight, I just did it with a drill press, and then just clamped on, super glued on the stop on the end, just so that it's the right distance in. I made an 18mm one and I made myself a 12mm one, and arguably the 12mm one might be more useful because it's harder to get perfectly centered on 12mm stock than on 18mm stock. But yeah, just thought I'd mention it in case anyone finds it useful. If anybody wants to make some of these out of metal or something where the hole won't get bigger over time, that'd be smashing. Because I'm having to do it with clamps, I'm basically having to glue this up one joint at a time, as in like one corner at a time. So I've done that one, clamped it, screwed it. Now I'm ready to do this one. You'll see. So, glue first. Get it positioned. Okay, so that's as much as I can get it in. You can still see there's at least a centimetre. So So now, apply some pressure with clamps. Okay. So I felt one corner click in, now I'll do the other corner. There's a lot of pressure I'm having to put on to get it to go tight. See, this is the thing with the domino so tight, even on the medium setting where you've got that plate to try and get the edges flush, you can't get them flush by banging them. It's too tight, it won't go. Look, see that little gap there? Not flush, but the dominoes are so tight in there that trying to bang it that way just isn't working. So I'm just gonna have to live with that. Never mind. Okay, I'm using 4x60 screws. Other screws are available. Right, that's that carcass glued up. This is the drawer unit. This is 500 wide, 560 deep. So I'm just going to leave this somewhere to dry. I haven't checked it for square. I'm not going to, because I don't really care. I did check it on dry fit and it seemed almost square, tiny bit out, maybe like 1 mil across the length. Fine with that. Right, next it's the shelf pins for the drawer unit, and I've got a nifty little cheap shelf pin jig from China, which I will show you. Here it is, red anodized aluminium. It's got these stops on it there, so you pop it on the edge of the workpiece, and then that's exactly what's that one, 37 mil in. You can also do 50 mil or 64 mil. At the front of this unit's going to have doors, and at the front it's going to have a centre support which will push the shelf back at least 50 mil. So I'll probably do 64 for the front and 37 on the back. I'm not sure if I'll try and do one on the central support. We'll see. And following Peter Millard's lead, I also bought a 4.8 mil drill bit, because the kit comes with a 5 mil and the shelf pins are 5 mil, but you want them to fit snug. So 4.8 mil was the way to go. Question is, do I want to extend them? No, because it's 10 o'clock at night and I can't be asked. Oh yeah, there's the fit you want, good and tight. Incidentally, very impressed with UK Drills Cobalt bits. I use them quite a lot. Thank you, Peter Millard, for that lovely tip. Right, time to call it a night. They'll dry overnight. Not square, a bit less square than I indicated. It's more than a mil out. It's several mil out over the length of the thing. It'll be absolutely fine. I'll make it fit, doesn't matter. Yeah, I need to go to bed because it is 11:06. So tomorrow I'll see if I can remember how to fit door hinges, because it's been a while. So it's the next day. I'm pleasantly surprised to see that I was able to do some hinges without too much fuss. Got to say thanks again to Peter Millard for his video on concealed hinges. I've drilled out for the knobs. I'm going to put some knobs on these. Annoyingly though, I did break through slightly. I mean, it's only workshop stuff, so I don't really care, but I did break through slightly with the Forstner bit when I was drilling the hinge. I was really careful though. I kept taking it in small passes. I mean, this is my 35mm Forstner bit. Is that a particularly long point on that, would you say? I mean, if that's longer than normal, I'll buy myself one with a point that doesn't protrude as much, but it does stick out a good 5mm from the rest of the Forstner bit. So I think Peter Miller said you have to go down 13mm for the cups of the hinges. So 13 plus 5, it's 18, you're going to break through. But so maybe you can get special hinge bits with less of a point on them, perhaps. Let me know. Anyway, I've decided I've got the router table out because I'm going to put a little round over on the front edges of the doors, just for fun. Why not? Oh dear, the bearings just come off my router bit. I thought it was looking a little bit loose. There it is. Thankfully, it didn't fly off and hit me. So yes, let's have a look. Right, back in business. So this is where the bearing slipped off and obviously momentarily went more into the cutter because the bearing wasn't there to guide it anymore. But hey ho, like I say, it's workshop furniture. It's all a learning experience. So I've made most of my drawer bits off camera because you don't even see that, and I've glued up most of it. So obviously that's the carcass, I think you've already seen that. Each drawer is going to have a base, and on top, which is just a piece of 12mm ply, and on top of that base will sit some sides, fixed down with pocket screws and probably a bit of glue. These sides I've been dominoed and brad nailed together. The brads are just to hold it while the glue dries, so I can carry on. So I don't know if you can see, but on each one of these there is a little lip that sticks out on either side, and that lip is going to run inside some grooves which are going to sit in here. Now I've seen quite a few people on YouTube make drawers this way, hooked on wood, and some other people. I'm not going to route the grooves out. The thing I'm going to do that's slightly different, I think, or at least I don't think I've seen before, is use 6mm ply on the sides to make runners, I suppose, slides, housing joints. I mean, they're not really housing joints, are they? It does mean the thick of this will end up being 18 plus 6, so quite thick, but I don't really care about that. The alternative was to use 12mm ply for the sides, but 18mm for the top, and then it's different. It's difficult for the dominoes then, so I didn't want to do that. So let me show you quickly how this will go together. So the bottom base will simply run on the base of the cabinet. That's nice and easy, no problems there. And then these will sit on top, but I want to leave a bit of space there. And I'm in an iron about how high to make these, and then I realised I can just make them exactly the same height as the sides of the drawer box, provided I don't mind the gap between the base and the rails, or whatever you want to call these things. As long as that gap is the same as the clearance between the two things, then it's fine for them to be the exact same size. So what I'm going to do, these spacers you can get are excellent, by the way. You can just buy an assorted pack of like 1mm, 2mm, 3mm, 5 and 6mm spacers. So these are 2mm spacers, so I'm going to have a 2mm gap for the base to run in the slides. I'm going to call them slides, I don't know what else to call them. So one slide on there, one slide on here. Obviously this won't just be a base, it will have the the drawer box sitting on top of it. Then we get the next base. These bases are currently running a little bit tight. I need to just shave a tiny bit off of them with the table saw. I might plane them by hand maybe, I'm not sure. But anyway, it will just about slide in. Okay, so again, imagine that these have the sides sitting on top, so they're actual drawers rather than just the bases. But anyway, that'll slide on there. As I say, it's very stiff at the moment. I'm going to take a tiny bit off the edges. Then another 4 2mm spacers. The other two sides, remember these sides are just the exact same height as the sides of the drawer boxes. And then the final base at the top. By the way, you can see I've made these 3 drawers are all different. The top one's the slimmest, the bottom one's the fattest. And so that's how it's going to be assembled. So I'm just going to trim down these drawer bases a tiny bit so they slide more freely, and then attach the sides of the boxes into the drawers. So let's see how that goes. Oh, see these metal brackets? These are for fixing the cabinet to the wall. So I did make the top drawer slightly shorter and slightly lower to account for these brackets being there. Right, let's have a look. So there we go, that's the assembly all done. One mistake, actually 2 mistakes. Spacing around this top one, you can see, is nowhere near as tight. I forgot that obviously I don't need drawer slides on the top one, and when I was cutting everything on the Mitre saw, I cut it all to the same width, but I could have made that top one slightly wider. And also that spacing at the top there was for those metal brackets at the back. But actually, what I probably should have done is made it the same at the front and then just cut it down a bit at the back or something. But you know, I'll live with it. So yeah, next job is obviously to sand it and wax it. I'm only going to wax the bits that slide. Can't be asked to wax the whole thing. I'm not going to wax like the inside of drawer boxes and stuff. But yeah, sand it and wax it, everyone's favourite jobs, eh? Oh, and also, I think this is the first project of this size I've ever done where I haven't misfired a single brad nail. No brad nails emerged out of the side of anything. So, you know, well done me, I'm learning. They are installed. Massive shout out to Hue Par laser levels, by the way. Absolutely phenomenal value. Love it. Doors are a little bit wonky. Don't care. And this top drawer sticks out a little bit. The screws in the brackets that attach it to the wall ended up protruding this way a bit more than I thought. My solution, if I can get this out one-handed, my solution was to use a Forstner bit to bore a couple of holes at the back where the screws are. How did I work out where the screws were? I used the scientific method of banging it hard against them and seeing where the dents were at the back. So there we go. Win-win for common sense. So yeah, now I need to start building the frame that is going to support the false worktop above the long horizontal storage that's going to go here. Actually, slight change of plan. I'm not going to build the frame bit sliding horizontal wood storage that goes on there, even though I want to, because when I'm building all the cabinets for the other side of the garage, I'm going to need to get a load of stuff through the table saw, or rather I want to get a load of stuff through the table saw. That's my preferred way of doing it. And at the moment, the bed of the table saw is above the level of those cabinets there. There's a good bit of clearance. So when I'm running big pieces through for the sides of the carcasses and all that, that's fine. If I build the thing here, I'm not going to have that space. The plan eventually is for this table saw unit to go down there, but I've currently got all the plywood down there and I can't do anything with that until I've basically finished the whole thing. So the table saw is going to have to stay in this kind of temporary location until I finish this whole project. So that's going to have to wait till near the end now. So actually what I need to do is get on with stuff for that side of the garage, I guess. This is going to be the adjustable base for under the saw, the one that's going to allow me to raise it up and down and sort of micro adjust it. It's officially my biggest glue up to date, not massive compared to a lot of things you see on YouTube, I'm sure, but for me this is quite a big glue up. I've used pretty much every single clamp, plus a bunch of screws in the middle to hold it tight. I'm just laminating together two 18mm ply pieces to make a 36mm thick piece, because that Bosch Mitre saw there, which is what it's going to go under, weighs an absolute ton. Further update, that's officially the most awkward object I've ever tried to move on my own. I should have got someone to help me really. Just moving it from there to there was a real feat, and actually there wasn't enough room on the table. It was hanging off the edge, so you can see I've had to use these two tall clamps to just lift up that edge, otherwise it would just all slide off the table. So yeah, creative thinking there. This is the big carcass, or the biggest of the carcasses rather, I should say. It's on its side, these strips at the top. So this is going to replace that unit there where I've got my batteries. So I'm going to have a bunch of shelves on the lower half and then like a slide out tray for those battery chargers at the top, which is this bit. This is the top. It is even though this is just a dry fit, it is a bit more wobbly than I'd like. Hang on, you can't really see, can you? It's a bit more wobbly than I want it to be. So what I'm going to do, got a scrap here that's suitable. I'm just going to do a piece that way as well. There is going to be a central divider and some stuff going in there, so it will shore it up. What I found with the dominoes, actually hang on, let me take this apart and I'll show you. Here's what I mean. So where and I appreciate that not everyone has a domino, and even if you do have a domino, you might already know this. So this is going to be incredibly niche advice. But anyway, something I've learnt the sort of medium way, I wouldn't say the hard way, but where you cut a wider mortise, so you see this mortise here is wider than the domino, so that's the middle setting on the DF500 machine, and you do that so that you get a bit of side-to-side play, so that you can align up the faces nicely with each other. So when you're putting this in here, obviously this isn't the right slot, but you know, you get what I mean. You can tap it with a mallet and go slightly that way, and get it nice and flush. What I've found is it's much easier. Well, certainly with this ply, when I've used MDF in the past, it hasn't been as tight, but on this ply, I'm finding the 5mm dominoes really tight. So it's much easier to do that side-to-side tapping before you get the domino fully down. So when it's like only halfway down, when you can see your pencil mark isn't lining up, or you can just see it's not lining up, doing the tapping at that point is much easier than trying to whack it when you've got it fully down, especially with forward and here. It's a lot of holding power already. So yeah, that might be of help to someone, it might not. Like I say, a bit of a niche advice, but anyway. On these two, the ones there, I did use my little, these things to put the holes in the side and screw in, but it did mean manoeuvring them while they were dry fitted together, manoeuvring them around and then using that jig to drill in. And because this carcass is going to be quite a bit bigger, manoeuvring it around while it's dry fitted wasn't really an option. So obviously I can get the pocket holes done while it's all in panels, while it's all apart. Plus I'm going to go quite heavy duty on it and do quite a lot, because I have like 500 of the correct screws for 18mm ply, so I might as well. I could only fit one on these top nailer strips. I didn't really want to try and squeeze pocket holes in on the edges here. I felt like that wasn't enough space, but remember it has got these two dominoes as well and it will be glued, so hopefully that'll be all right. But then the rest of it I am going to just fit in as many pocket screws as I want. The nice thing about this Kreg jig as well is in addition to being able to use it upright like that, it can also be used on its side like that. Not going to pretend it isn't a little bit awkward manoeuvring stuff around, but it's still probably easier than one of those tiny little jigs you just clamp on. The other nice thing as well is normally when it's upright you can't see the underside, but here obviously I can see exactly where the dominoes are, so I can try and do a good job of getting this centralised between them. Right, crack on with some pocket holes. Okay, this is a little hard to see. So the carcass is laying down flat, so that's the back and that top bit is the front. So this bit is going to be the central divider. I've got slightly narrower shelves on that side, slightly fatter shelves on that side, or wider shelves. These strips here are going to be up at the top, a bit like these nailer strips at the top. They're going to hold it in place at the top, but at the moment I've wedged it in at the bottom using those, and I've used a Viking arm, which are great by the way, and a clamp to sort of hold that in. And then I've just struck a line all the way down here, and I'm just going to throw some screws in from the bottom to hold that in place. I was originally going to pocket screw it, but actually when I was doing this dry fit and wedging it in, I thought, hang on a minute, while it's wedged in there, I can get some screws in from underneath. So that's what I'm going to do. I am still going to do pocket screws in these bits. Right, here's something to think about that I didn't, and you might want to. Again, the cabinet is laying down flat. The face that's down on the bench is the front. That on top there is the back. That's the top of the cabinet. So just doing these central divider pieces with pocket screws, I just drilled them out all the same, because why wouldn't you? But actually, I'm a bit worried. I've been lucky, but I thought these screws might collide, both going into one 18mm piece at the same. You can see these ones at slightly different levels, but some of these pretty close. But I think I've just been lucky they haven't collided. I've still got to do the back bit, these bits here, so you never know. There's still time, I suppose, but something to think about if you're drilling out something similar. Here it is, the right way up, and the basics of it constructed. I got lucky and I didn't have any clashes with the screws. I need to put some holes in that strip at the back now for fixing to the wall, because I'll use that instead of brackets on this thing. So now I need to do a bit of measuring up and work out my drawers and how many I'm having and what sizes and whatnot. So I'm going to do that. So yesterday I got that carcass built and put together. Today I've woken up with a sore throat. I'm feeling pretty crappy. I don't really want to do anything, but I need to. I've got a clear day. So it's school summer holidays here in the UK as I film this. My wife's taking the kids out today. All the kids, got 2 kids. So I've got a clear day. Don't have a clear day. Tomorrow we're all doing stuff together as a family, and I'm back at work later in the week. So I just want to crack on. But it's quite timely because I was watching a proper DIY video last night, and Stuart, I hope he doesn't mind me using his name, I don't know. Stuart was doing his fence project, and he was talking about stamina and how people don't talk about it much in YouTube videos, that the stamina you need to get a project done. And I mean, this is only, no one's told me to reorganise my workshop. This is something I wanted to do. It should be enjoyable for me, and it is enjoyable for me, but obviously today I don't really feel great. So it's one of those days when you do have to just keep going, because I've been at this for weeks. I mean, I didn't realise, well, I did realise how big this was going to be, but you know, how long it was going to take me from getting the concrete base done from the shed, or getting rid of the old shed, concrete base for the shed, building the shed, moving stuff into the shed, doing the cabinets on that side, and just the sheer amount of plywood I've got to break down. So to do all the internals for this, I mean, you can see it's 10:45 before I've stepped foot in the workshop today, because I just haven't been feeling it. To do all the internals for that, believe it or not, all the drawer slides, I'm going to have to break down 2 sheets of 12mm ply and 1 sheet of 6mm ply. It's basically 1.5 sheets of 12mm just for all the drawers and things. The bases on their own for that take up almost a whole sheet. It's this side, the bases are 500 by 600, and on that side the bases are 300 by 600. So quite a lot of plywood taken up just with the bases. Anyway, yeah, so as much as I love that Milwaukee track saw, I'm so glad I bought it. Breaking down the sheets is starting to get a bit repetitive at the moment, but that's what I need to do today. And I need to have the garage door open to do it, and the weather's decent today as well, so it's another reason to crack on. Anyway, all of this self-pitying is already making this video even longer than it already will be, so I'll get cracking with some breaking down of some plywood. Well, you know what, as much as I've still got a sore throat and I still feel a bit crappy, I feel a lot better for having done that. It's 4 o'clock. It took me 2 hours to break down all the plywood, so I'm happy not to do any more of that for a while. I'm basically swimming in bits of wood at the moment. Let me show you. So I've got the 2 carcasses I haven't put together yet, some runners for the carcasses I haven't put together yet. 200mm drawers for the left and right of this carcass, 300mm drawer for the right side of this carcass, scraps of wood from the Mitre saw which need to go in the bin, bases for the right hand side, bases for the left hand side, and they are nice and slidey without being too slidey. That's a 100mm drawer and its runners for the left of the carcass, another 100mm drawer and its runners, another 100mm drawer and its runners. Slim top drawer for the left of the carcass, slim top drawer for the right of the carcass, and obviously all these bits of wood which are going to be for the shelves and the sliding wood storage there that I haven't done yet. All the bits of the battery tray over there, plus the worktop that's going to go on top of this. So yeah, I've got a lot of bits of wood around here. Oh, those are all scraps from the table saw which also need to get broken up and go in the bin. So yeah, time to start actually doing some assembly, maybe, hopefully, we'll see. I'm doing the same deal again with the base, 2mm spacers on top of the base, and the runners, for want of a better term, sitting on top of those 2mm spacers. On top of them, I said, there we go. And then gluing and nailing it to the sides. So let's do a little time lapse. Two stupid mistakes I made there, worth pointing out. One is here. You can see this is not flush with the front of the car because I didn't notice that the runner had slid that way before I started pinning it. So I'll probably get like a flush cut saw or something, go down that and then sand it back. So it means there's a tiny gap on the back as well, but never mind. The other stupid mistake is here. Far too much clearance. I didn't realise somehow the front had lifted up off of that 2mm spacer, which means that not only is there too much clearance, which in itself isn't really a problem, but this side is slightly higher than that side. So really I should try and sand off the top of this runner a bit. I mean, I don't know how to take a bit of material off that left side really. I haven't got like a plane that would do that or anything. So, I mean, it's only one drawer that's slightly wonky. You can see, can't you? Maybe, yeah, slightly wonky, this one. But that's the one I'm just going to keep in all my kind of pencils and pens and things in, this slim top drawer here. So maybe I'll live with it. Maybe I'll think of a way to sand it or something. I don't know. Anyway, silly mistakes. This little Stanley flush cut saw's done a blinding job on this one. That was too proud, to be honest. So it's the best looking one now, to be perfectly honest with you. Maybe I should have done them all like that by mistake. Never mind. Still don't know what I'm going to do about this being slightly too high. All right, so I think I've made it a little bit better. It's still not perfect, but I'm probably going to live with it. So I noticed that I've got one of these Shinto rasps that Paul Sellers uses, and I noticed that the teeth on it do go right the way to the very edge. So I've been using the coarse side, putting it on there and then just running it all the way along. When I see Paul Sellers use them, they're quite a fast, aggressive cutting tool, but I've been at this for about 40 minutes now, and I've made some difference, not a lot. I mean, you can see most of my shavings there. I've also kind of been using a chisel and some other bits to try and get it right to the very, very edge. I mean, if I just, here you go. So this is a metric setup block, so that's exactly 50mm. Not that it really matters, but the point is, you can see if I slide it there, it's got that much gap, and if I slide it down there, considerably more. So it ain't great. But to be honest, for 40 minutes of effort with a rasp, skinning my knuckles in the process, I'm probably just going to give up and live with that, to be honest with you. Real life woodworking. It's a couple of days later, feeling a bit better. We took the kids to Peak Wildlife Park yesterday, which I'd highly recommend if you're in the area. I've been before, but it's nice to see the polar bears all having fun. Anyway, I did get a tiny bit of time last night, about an hour and a half, and but rather than crack on with all the drawer boxes I need to make, because it wasn't really enough time for that, I decided to make myself a new stop block for the Mitre saw, because I had been using this thing, which has been okay, but the problem is, the idea is that this stop can go on either side, and then you sort of clamp it to the workbench using this bit at the front, and then that bit's the support. And it's got these threaded inserts with adjustable feet in there, so I can sort of micro adjust it to get it just exactly the right height, which is great in theory, except I've used M6 ones, which are probably a bit on the small side, plus I used the crap threaded inserts, the gold ones rather than the silver ones. So it's never really been able to handle that much downward force, so I never clamp it as harshly as I would like to. Which means that sometimes when I butt the wood up to it, it knocks it a bit like that, because it's not clamped as much as I want, which isn't really what you want from something that's designed to give precision. So I made a new one that can also be used on, I get the Mitre saw behind me on those new units, because it's got a groove there which the MatchFit clamp slides into quite nicely. So running the groove. This distance is designed, because you see here, this goes forward quite a bit before you put it up. So it's got enough space there to be able to drop it down, do that. It can handle plenty of clamping pressure. Slightly annoyingly, it's not exactly 90 degrees. I don't know, I mean, I cut all the bits and I measured them with my truest square, and they were all, the bits were all exactly 90. They came off the Bosch Mitre saw, no problem, beautifully. But for some reason, something went wrong in assembly. This is very slightly tilted back. It's less than 1 degree. I'd say it's probably less than half a degree just from my eye. So I can live with that, it's fine. I mean, I deliberately have made it taller than that one, because I find sometimes if I'm stacking bits up to cut them all at the same time, and I butt them up, the bottom bits will catch that, but the top bits won't so much. And remember as well, the Mitre saw is going to be set into the bench, so it will begin at this height, or get that full height. It's possible, this is a bit slimmer than that one, width-wise. It's possible, I suppose, if I was stacking the bits horizontally instead of stacking the bits vertically, I might run out of space there. You know, I might still have the same problem, so, you know, I might end up making a Mark III, which is wider than that perhaps. But for now, this will do the job quite nicely. Very happy with that. That's not going anywhere. So yeah, so that was my little bit of time in the workshop yesterday. Today though, I need to cut the fronts and backs of the drawer boxes down to size, which is why it's useful to have a repeat stop. And I also need to route the dominoes into them and do the pocket holes. And then I might be able to start assembling some drawer boxes, we'll see. Right, here's another stupid mistake for you. And it's a mistake I've made before, and I really thought I'd got the hang of sorting this, but in doing the pocket holes for the bases, I've got the settings slightly wrong, and I've punctured out the bottom with the screws. This one isn't too bad. This one here is quite bad. You can see that it's come through a fair way. So yeah, I really thought I'd got the hang of this. Just setting the collar on the drill a bit shallower. So like, you know, if it's meant to be 12mm, just setting it around about the 11mm mark instead. Thought I'd got the hang of that. Obviously I haven't, I don't know. So I guess I'm gonna have to file them down a bit. I don't want to loosen the screws off because they're doing the job. There's no glue holding the base on, just the screws. So yeah, maybe I'll get the old power file out. It can be a rare outing for the power file to just file down the bits of metal that are protruding. Man, that was a long day's work. So, what have we done today? 72 dominoes, 94 pocket screws, plus had to cut all the fronts and backs to length this morning. Discovered that those top two I hadn't run through the table saw, so I got those to width. Obviously I've done all the Forstner holes, or whatever you want to call them, the pull holes. I've put a round over on them all with my little 12-volt router. Assembled all the boxes and just sanded them all down, and obviously filed down all those screws that I'd driven too far. So yeah, that is a long day's work. Those 72 dominoes and 94 pocket screws, that's in addition to the ones in the carcass, by the way. And I still need to make the battery charging shelf. I'm going to see if I've got enough material to mitre the edges of the surround that's going to go around the shelf, just to make it a little bit nicer, because I'm going to look at it every day. Well, every day I'm in here. So yeah, calling it a day today. Right, been doing a fair amount off camera. I've just done some waxing of all the parts where things are going to slide, bottoms of drawer boxes. So basically the bare minimum, because I can't be asked to wax any more than I have to. But it does make a difference, so it's worth doing. Incidentally, on wax, I really like this stuff. The Axminster Workshop Clear Paste Wood Wax. I have got these other waxes. I've got some Bry Wax, the microcrystalline one, obviously the machine wax, but that's just for machines. The microcrystalline one is really hard, quite difficult to apply, but it is odourless, if that makes a difference to you. Bry Wax stinks like hell, very solventy, which I don't mind, but goes on okay. But this is less smelly than the Bry Wax, although not odourless, and just goes on so easily, so I like that. I'm aware other YouTubers do make their own waxes and sell them. I haven't tried those, but out of the stuff that's commercially available, I really like that stuff. Anyway, yeah, so waxed those, done the drawers. These are some fancy soft close drawer slides. I've made myself a charging tray, so where's that? Here we go. So I even mitered the edges. Look, I don't mitre stuff often, and it probably shows. Don't look at those screws, they're not even, but never mind. So that will slide out and have all my batteries and chargers and things on. So I've put the back on as well, you can see there. So I'm pretty much ready, I think, to fit it, although I'm probably not going to have time this evening now. I think I'm going to call it a day, but because the first job is dismantling all of that, finding somewhere to put it while I fit this unit to the wall, which is obviously only temporary, but not a fun job, and I'm not looking forward to it, so I'm going to knock off, I think, for the day. All right, it's screwed to the wall. Just need to put this bit of worktop on the top. I've decided I'm going to fit the screws on the worktop from the top instead of fitting from underneath. The reason is because this is a workshop, I want to be able to see where the screws are, so when I'm routing the MatchFit groove, this thing for my stop and whatnot, I can see exactly where the screws are and avoid them and move them if I have to, although I have measured it and it should be fine. Two things to note. One is this is the charging tray. I've had to just put a little zip tie in a loop here to keep the cable a bit higher, because I was finding it wanted to just snarl itself up down the back of where those drawers are. And this, I've used one of these things just to try and make it look a bit nicer. But I found that even with that middle bit popped out, it was a very, very tight fit getting what is a reasonably normal UK plug through there. So if you're buying any of those, just sort of check. That one, I can't remember what the internal measurements are. It's a 60mm hole it needs, but I don't know what the actual internal measurements are. So yeah, just got to put the worktop on now and start filling out the drawers and whatnot. Oh, also, you might notice I've put 6 feet on it, 3 at the front, 3 at the back, just because it was, even without all the drawers in and the sliding shelf, it was already pretty heavy. Putting the drawers in, the sliding shelf, it was super heavy before I'd even filled them with anything, so I just thought 6 feet is probably the way to go. Plus I had tons of them in a bag anyway that I bought of like a bulk lot ages ago. And here we are with the worktop fitted, screwed down, lovely and flush next to the little drawers I made. Very little perceptible difference there. Battery trays all populated, I suppose, for want of a better term. everything clears, even though I've got a little bit less vertical height between the batteries and chargers, being able to pull it out much more convenient. I'm back at work today, so I've only had a little bit of time in the shop after work. So what I've done, rather than crack on with cabinets, a bit like when I made that stop block, I've just done something a little bit different. So what I've done is this here, this is the storage, come on, for my router bits that I made a little while ago. And it served the purpose, not taking up too much space, but to be honest, it's ugly as hell. I've never really been that happy with it. So through the miracle of editing, I can show you what I've done, which is, whoa, magic, there we go. So I've made one of ththese drawers into my router bits drawer with a couple of these removable tray things which run on some 9mm plywood runners. So I've got all of my 18 volt router, 12 volt router. I don't have a 1/2 inch router at the moment. The DeWalt 18 volt one is crazy expensive. I was kind of hoping that these would slide along in there, but they kind of get stuck diagonally immediately as soon as you try and slide them. They just kind of jam themselves. So what you have to do is just lift them up, slide them along. But they do sit clear of most things in there, which is good. And that means I can get all my router stuff in one place. So I'm very happy about that. So that was a nice little hour and a half, I'd say. Alrighty, I've got another stupid mistake for you. Of course I have. So I'm doing the carcass for the cabinet that's going to go underneath the saw, and this one has a central divider that I'm dominoing in, which is something I haven't done on the previous ones. Just screwed them in. And when you're doing central dividers, it's easier. I've watched Sedge Tools video, I've watched other videos on YouTube, and it's easier to mark off the base than it is to use the plate. That's the plate, that's the base at the bottom. So I moved the plate out of the way and then forgot to set it back when I was doing the mortises on the edges. So these are too far that way. So if I pop a bit of 18mm just up against the edge there, you can see, hang on, there we go. You can see that's not in the center, that's going to be right on the very edge that way. It's probably achievable, but just for safety, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the mortises. I'm going to add an extra sort of 3mm on, which will bring the sides inbound, which means I am going to get this lip. I don't want to cut the sides shorter because I want the full, this is 900mm. I want the full 900mm to sit underneath that saw because I need it. But if I just bring the sides in, it's not going to compromise anything. It's just a little bit ugly, and it means I lose like 6mm of drawer space, but you know. So that's how I'm going to deal with that one, I think, because it's fine to have mortises that aren't in the centre. That works fine with the domino, but that was a bit too close to the edge there. So bring it in 3mm, that should give it enough strength for the thing to hold, and yeah, silly mistake. And that's what it looks like. So there you go. You can see, again, not centered, but just a little bit further that way, just enough to give it a few layers of ply. It'll be fine once glued up, and it just means the sides aren't going to sit flush. They're going to sit sort of like that. I haven't actually, this isn't dry fit, so that isn't how it'll finally look, but you get the idea. It's going to be slightly inset. Not the end of the world. It'll be fine. So here we are. This is what the final overhang has ended up being. Not too bad, really, for a rescue job. Maybe I should call it reveal, make it sound deliberate. I think it's a bit too small for that, but anyway, yeah, enough to catch your finger on, but you know, I'll still be able to get screws through the side to fix it into the other unit there. So yeah, for a rescue, could have been worse. Doing strips again on this one because it's got a worktop piece going on top, and I remembered I had that other problem with the other one where I had the strips and I was worried about the screws colliding with each other. So I just had to do some annoyingly complicated maths to make sure that these ones don't. Counterintuitively, it turns out you have to actually mark them up exactly the same, because then when you turn them around like this, now they don't coincide with each other, coincide, but the markings are the same. And to get those 3 slices, I've had to actually do 6 slices plus coming inbound a bit from the sides, and the gaps ended up being 13.4mm gaps between them. Obviously I'm not being quite that precise, I did 13, 14, 13, 14, but still annoyingly complicated maths just for that little problem. Here's a point that most people probably wouldn't consider, and that's when I'm breaking down the MDF panels with my track saw, I typically do those cuts, rough cuts obviously, about 20 mils oversized, something like that. What I do is, when I use one of those cut list optimizer type things online that show you the best way to lay it out, I put 20 mil in for the blade kerf, and then that just gives me the kind of clearance. And then I cut everything properly on the table saw or Mitre saw, which is fine. But there's two issues with that. One is you end up doing a lot of cuts because you cut everything twice. The other one that a lot of people probably wouldn't think about is you end up with an awful lot of these very thin strips, which you then need to snap into pieces and break into your bin. So just something to consider. Don't think I've seen any other woodworkers mention getting rid of these kind of small scraps that you don't want to hang on to, especially sheet goods. So anyway, point to think about. Another quick domino tip, just to alienate people who don't have dominoes, specifically with 12 mil ply, because that's quite thin. It can be tricky to get a good registration on the plate to make sure that the domino is not tipping that way. So the way I've been getting around that is to do two pieces at a time, back to back, and then make sure that top level is perfectly flush, clamp it in a vise, and then do both sides, both boards face at the same time. Let me just show you what that looks like. So here's what I mean, got them both clamped up, and you can see these boards are slightly bowed, bent, so they're not sitting nicely together. Some of them have, but that doesn't matter. To be honest, if anything, it gives you more surface, as long as they're flush, with each other. That's the main thing. And the edge stops on the domino don't really come out much past 12 mil anyway, so it doesn't really matter too much if the edges aren't that flush, but you do want the top flush for the plate to sit on. And then together with having this plate on as well, which helps too for these face plunges, you get, oh, sorry, I've got the edge stop out there. Well, I'm using that edge stop anyway because these are quite narrow boards. So there you go. You get a decent amount of registration surface now then. And it's pretty obvious for me to see if I'm not vertical. I've got a lot of kind of easy visual cues. So there you go, just a little domino tip because I know people love them. Remember that issue I had with the pocket screws coming through the bottom? I think I might have worked it out. People quite often like to say, oh, 12 mil plywood and MDF is actually 13 mil and 18 mil is actually 19 mil. I'm finding the opposite. It'll probably help if I turn the calipers on, give them a 0. I am finding the opposite. The majority of mine is 11.5. So even though I set and obviously it's the same for all my 12 mil plywood, I'm just not going to make you watch a video where I measure a load of plywood. Trust me, that's all the same. So if you see on this Craig drill bit, it's got and this does actually have 19 and 13 rather than 18 and 12. So last time I had it set about there, so a bit shallower than 13, but given that it's 11.5, I think I'm going to sort of do more like that, maybe. Something like that. So let's see if this does a bit of a better job with my 11.5 mil plywood, and I'll let you know at the end. Fast forward in time a little bit, setting that stop collar lower, it's a definite improvement, but I still have had a couple come through. This is 2 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 24. In 24, I've had 2 come through so far. I'm only part way through doing all this. So maybe I need to set that stop collar even shallower, more like 10 mil or something, I don't know. Final tally was actually 3 in 72 pocket holes. So those first 3 that I had were actually the only 3. So 3 in 72 is about a 4% breakthrough rate. So that's definitely a big improvement over what I had before. So actually setting the collar down on the drill bit is a good shout. Maybe just needed to go like a tiny fraction more. Anyway, that's better. The straw unit behind my table saw there, my solution for the brackets was to make the top drawers a little bit shorter, and it still didn't really work. So I've gone a bit more low tech this time and just sawed out where they are so that the drawer will go past it. Obviously there'll be a back on this and it won't come past that, but so I just traced around them and sawed them out because yeah, it seemed like the easiest way. All right, some more progress. I got the saw unit in, it's fixed to the wall, it's also fixed to that thing, and it's fixed to its legs, obviously. The legs are leveled. There's enough space there for the saw plus the adjustable base plus about 10 mil of height on the adjustable base. So yeah, getting there. I've got the other cabinet pretty much ready, but I'm not going to install it until I've got all the saw base stuff done, because that one, once by the time that gets fixed to the wall, it will need to have been leveled to be perfect with the saw base. So yeah, feels good. And I've got the adjustable base cut to size. I've put a nice round over on the edges, sanded it. So yes, that's ready to get some threaded inserts going in on the underside, and yeah, start spacing out for the saw properly. It's my first time testing out the saw in the space where it's going to go here, and I was hoping I'd be able to do it so that every single possible permutation of the saw configuration would fit into the space, because it feels like quite a big space. That isn't the case. However, I think it'll be fine. So I can do miters, no problems. It doesn't collide with the wall doing miters. If I go right the way up to 60, like literally right on 60, this handle just collides with the edge of this, but that's on 60, and it's pretty rare that I do 60-degree miters, to be honest. What is a bit more tricky is if I do, and I can bevel it both ways as well, so if I bevel it to the left, that's fine. It's not, I can see it's just about not overhanging here, because remember I'm going to have shelves, so I'm going to have vertical pieces going up either side here, although admittedly behind the fence. So yeah, bevel to the left, fine. My God, it is heavy though. And then a bevel to the right. What does this do for, hang on, I've gone past 0, there we go. Bevel to the right is, now that actually does go past where the thing will be. So I would end up having to do left bevels, I think, if I was doing 45. Is that, yeah, that's 45. Or unless I have, if I make sure I have the vertical piece behind there, that might work maybe, I don't know. Anyway, so that's not too bad. The difficulty is now, if I were to do compound, bevel and mitre at the same time, so if I've got it beveled to the left, I can swing it round to the right, no problem, doesn't collide with anything. Well, might collide with the vertical divider actually. Swing it to the right though, this whole assembly is going to hit the wall. You can see there, it hits the wall at that point. So, if I were doing compound, bevel and mitre at the same time, and if I couldn't get away with doing it, so in as much as I can swing it, bevel it left and swing it right, I can also bevel it right and swing it left, because those don't collide with the wall. It's if I want to bevel right and swing right, or bevel left and swing left, the chances of me doing those are pretty slim. Worst comes to worst, I take it off there and I put it back over on my other workbench. So I think I can probably live with that. All right, so this is the first look at the adjustable base with the adjustable bits in. What I've been round and added 3 extra screws around where each threaded insert is. Let me just pick it up, I'll show you the threaded inserts. So the threaded inserts go in from the underside. Those are M10 threaded inserts, 22 mils long. And then obviously as the weight pushes down, it's pushing the insert into the wood rather than trying to pull the insert out of the wood. These are M10 by 60 bolts, and should hopefully give me a decent amount of strength in it. And now I need to work out how to get it into there so that it registers in exactly the same position every time, because I'd like to have a ruler. When I do my MatchFit groove, I'd also like to route a groove for a ruler along there so that I can do precise measurements. So I need both the base to go in there exactly the same way every time, and I need the saw to go onto the base exactly the same way every time. That I can probably just bolt to that with some more threaded inserts. That's probably fine. This is a bit more tricky. I need to work it out. I might try and do like spacers around the edge that are the exact right size. I'm not really sure. I'll work it out. Well, it's starting to come together, and I've got a little helper here. This is Jemima. Hi, Jemima. She's come in because it's raining. Yeah, so we're getting there. This unit, which is now fixed in place, I could have done with making it a tiny bit shorter. I think I hadn't accounted for the unevenness of the floor. I'd been a little bit too exact, and it was just a little bit on the high side. It is what it is. It's like maybe not even 1 millimetre up from there, but it would have been nice if I could have got it perfectly level by having it low and then bringing the feet up. As it is, the back feet are at their absolute minimum adjustment. The front feet have just come up a bit to level it, and it, like I say, if you slide the level across, it just catches slightly, just grazes the edge. If I chamfer it, probably be fine. Just a little tiny bit annoying, but never mind. Righty-ho. Okay, I have bolted down the saw onto the adjustable base. I haven't bothered with the back ones. I've only done the front ones. I can't really see that thing is going to tip forwards, to be honest with you. I've had to do a little adjustment. I've had to put two 18mm spacers at the back here, just because I've got that step in the wall there. So when I was sliding this along, if you see, it was just gonna hit the wall. So now it just passes the wall when it's in line with the bed of the saw. So that's why I added an extra spacer in the back there, just to bring it slightly that way. Obviously this sanding unit's going to have to move. I'm going to take that down and put it somewhere else. I'm not really sure where yet. So we're getting there. I think what I'm going to do with these spacers, it seems to be one 18mm there, two 18mm at the back, and a 12mm here. And then I'm going to use, just sort of hammer in some of these little wedges just to get them, make sure it's in the right space every time. And I think I'm just going to leave them loose. I did think about attaching them to the sides and the wall, but I don't think it's necessary really. I think I will just keep the spacers loose, and then if I ever do need to jig stuff about a tiny bit, I can. That should work and get it pretty much bang on every time, I would think. And that's what it looks like with all the drawers installed. Good amount of drawer space for me, all empty at the moment, and then got 60 centimetres of clearance under there for things. I'll probably put that Milwaukee box and some other toolboxes and things under there. I've made my excuse me, I've made my first cut with the Mitre saw, where it is, and that was to create these little tabs which I glued in place and then reinforced with screws. And that is so that, because there is a little bit of wiggle room with those bolts, they're M8 bolts, but the gap they go into is actually 9.5mm. So these are just to make sure that I butt it up that way every time. I've just taken this spacer out because I'm cutting it at the moment. So so yeah, that should mean it's pretty much, you know, with the spacer for the base, the bolts, those little butt stop things for moving it that way, should be able to get it pretty much millimetre perfect every single time. Not that I'm going to be taking it out very much anyway, to be honest with you, but if I ever do remove it and put it back, should be able to get it millimetre perfect with that. And we're firmly at, hang on, I'll turn the camera around. Firmly at a phase of this where a lot of my time is spent kind of just looking at things, scratching my head, puzzling, working out what to do, what is actually my next job. Can I do that job, or is there something I need to do first to set myself up? You know, I'm at that point now where, like yesterday, all I had to do was get all the drawers cut to size, get all the drawers mortised, pocket hole put together, you know, just assembling a load of drawers all day, and I got tons done yesterday. Today, I'm very much at that kind of, I'm not sure what my next job is kind of point in it, and I'm making a lot slower progress, so, but it's fun. I'm enjoying it, and that's the main thing. So I've routed the MatchFit groove. I used the back of the rail to do it. So in case you've been thinking there, wondering why I've got such big gaps here and why I didn't make this fit tighter, it's so that I can get a MatchFit clamp in there into this space here and have plenty of room to do it. Same on the other side. I've got two grooves here, the MatchFit groove, and then a little groove that I have done to put a ruler into, hopefully. One of those rulers you can buy, that those tape measure type things. Don't look too closely, obviously I've got mistakes. I've got a janky bit here. Don't know what happened here, but on both the MatchFit groove and the ruler groove, I just obviously had a bit of a wobble here, as you can see, but it works. I've checked it, it doesn't make any difference to the function of it. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Just need to wax the top of that, and then I'm going to call it a day. Two things to mention. One is the measuring tapes have arrived, and I went massive overkill when I did a 3mm depth of groove. So I'm going to get some double-sided tape that's the right thickness and try and build it up so that it's a bit closer to the surface. I know a lot of people just stick this straight on the wood, on the surface or whatever, but I kind of didn't want it to be, I wanted it still to be perfectly flush. So that's thing one. But more impressive, I've got me top shelf thing up. So it all starts with this piece that's on the wall. That's the only bit that I've actually fixed into brickwork, and that's fixed in good and solid. Then everything else just fixed in with plenty of pocket screws, couple of ugly good old-fashioned brackets, but yeah, mostly pocket screws, as you can see. Done them on the other side there. So a bit of storage there up top. Dividers will do a little bit to stop the dust going side to side, not very much I imagine, not least because I've got those things at the back. That big hole there is for the light to go through. I've got another one of these LED battens. When I bought them, I actually bought two, and then didn't realise that they are wider. That's 900mm gap, and the battens are like 1200, so I need to hang it through there somehow. So yeah, get a bit of light in there. And we have light. Now, admittedly, the power arrangement and the cable management leaves something to be desired. That's all fair comment, and I'm probably not going to do anything about that in this phase. I'll tidy that up at some later date. But yes, so got power running through, got the cable plugged in. They give you 10 meters of cord, so I've just had to bundle it up and poke it on top there, because 10 meters is very generous and great, and in some cases very welcome, but in this case I don't need it. And I'm not going to shorten it because my electrical skills are rubbish. So yeah, that clamp is just holding it on because there's a bit of sticky tape on the back that's going to hopefully do its job. So yeah, I've time to sort of put some stuff up on that shelf, start getting some stuff in those drawers, do a little bit of tidying up really before I start thinking about the other side. Oh, I've got to do the those tape measures, haven't I? Yeah, that's another job I need to do. And I didn't route a groove on this side for one. I thought I was just going to do a left to right tape measure on this side, but they came as a pack of 3. You got one left to right, one right to left, and then one middle outwards, which I'll probably put on this bench somewhere as a kind of assembly thing for marking screw locations on battens and things like that, where you want to get them centered and then spaced out evenly. So yeah, I need to route another groove along here, and obviously I'm not going to do 3mm depth this time. I'll do a very, very shallow one, probably 1mm or maybe even less. Routed the groove on this side much, much shallower, so that should be better. I've also done one in the workbench. You can see here, starting at 0 in the middle. Sorry, why won't it focus? Starting at 0 in the middle. However, obviously I've got my MatchFit grooves, so I've got to cut out these portions. And this tape's made of metal, so I can't really use a craft knife or anything like that. Best idea I've got at the moment is my little Dremel with a cutting disc on it. So I might give that a go and see what happens. That's working pretty well. You can see I'm using these clamps. I've got very slim heads, much slimmer than my Irwin quick grips, so that I can get this in, because with the quick grips I just couldn't get far enough. It helps to have quite a wide disc. This is a diamond disc, so what's nice I think is you can cut it with the edge of the disc and then use the faces of the disc to kind of grind it back to where it needs to be, and then, oh hello, got a cat coming to visit me, and then just, oh, come on clamp, there you go, slides in and out. You can see I've already done one there. It's worked out quite nice. All right, cat, what do you want? Well, there we are. It's worked out all right. All of them are relatively neat. Well, yeah, I mean, I've caught the edges a bit there and stuff, but it's fine. The clamp slide in and out. I mean, sod's law, I know exactly what will happen is anytime I'm marking stuff up, the exact bit I want to measure will be right in the middle of one of these gaps or whatever, but you know, it's better than not having it. And it was a nice little test run for doing it over there. I did a 1mm depth of cut on the router, so you can see there is a little bit of a lip there. I mean, you could probably do a 0.5mm. I measured this tape with the calipers and it's like 0.2mm, so I don't think I'm going to be able to do a 0.2mm plunge on the router. It's just not that accurate. But main thing is I just wanted stuff to be able to slide over it when I'm sliding panels around, because I'm going to use this for cutting down full sheets and things, and if I'm sliding stuff around I don't want it to catch the edge of the tape, even if it is only very thin. So yeah, happy with that. Now I've got to do the real ones over there. Fast forward a day, because I did the tape measure over on that bench yesterday, and then I was going to do these ones, but I got sidetracked because I thought to myself, before I do this and put the measuring tape down, I should really just check that my saw is still cutting true 90-degree angles, both horizontally and vertically, because obviously I've moved it around between these two workbenches a lot when I was setting all of this up, and I might have knocked it, or something might have gone, and to be honest I haven't set it up since I bought it a couple of years ago anyway. It was actually fine on the horizontal this way along the glide arm. That was all perfectly bang on 90. However, it was very slightly out on the vertical. It was like half a degree, probably less, out on the vertical. But anyway, I've taken the time to do that. Annoyingly, I had to take it over there to do it because all the adjustment stuff is around the back and I actually can't get around the back of it now. But anyway, so it's all set up. That's perfectly cutting 90. So I thought I'd talk you through the process I'm going to do to get the tape down. So what I'm going to do is get a longish bit of wood, scrap, but it's got a nice true edge on it. And then I'm going to true up this edge, first of all. This is for this side. So I'm going to cut that, true that up, slide it over, clamp it down so it can't move. And you can see I've got a little bit of frog tape here on the bench so that I don't have to write on my bench. Mark where the end is. This is after it's clamped down. Mark where the end is, draw a line there. Make a cut, and then with it still clamped down so it still can't move, I'm going to measure that. Although actually I can just unclamp it, take it out, measure it, because I've put the mark on the tape, it doesn't matter. And then whatever the exact measurement is, that's exactly where I need to get the tape to line up on there, and then just stick the tape down. I've given up with the idea of trying to raise the tape up. I'll just live with the fact that it's sunken down a bit further. And then repeat the process on this side, so true it up on the other end, slide it over, do the same thing on that side, except I've got a bit of a shallower routed groove on that side. So yeah, that's the next job. Oh, also, hooking up the dust extraction to this where it is here, it's a bit of a nuisance having it trailing on the floor, so I'm just going to put a hook in the ceiling so I can have my vac hose go across the ceiling and down into it. So yeah, that's the next two jobs. Alrighty then, as Uncle Knackers would say, the hook is in the ceiling. By the way, when I do hooks in the ceiling, it's ugly as sin, but I don't get the hook directly in the ceiling. I always screw it to a block of wood, and then if I want to put more hooks on it, like this one's got like 4 different hooks, a couple of small ones, a couple of big ones. That one's got one big and one small. This one's just got the big one at the moment. Like I say, ugly as sin, but much more versatile. Anyway, yeah, so all done. This side was 591 for the piece of wood, so I've got it on 591. This side was 588 by the time I trimmed a little bit extra off the wood, so on 588. And I've put some small dabs of epoxy underneath there. I haven't trusted just the adhesive backing on the thing, and I used this Arold dye rather than, I didn't want to use 5-minute epoxy. I wanted to give myself plenty of working time, so I've used the proper stuff, but just tiny thin dabs underneath, very thin, so as not to, you know, cause any bumps in the thing. So yeah, just gonna let that dry now and leave it alone for a bit, for a day probably. You're not getting in there. The door's open. Look, I've left the door open for you. The door's open. Stupid cat. Come on. The door's open. Just get down on the floor and then come in the door. That's the rhyme you have to remember. See? Get down on the floor, then come in the door. Simple, isn't it? Stupid cat. Yeah, you can do it. There we go. Come on. Flipping heck. What a nightmare you are. Yes. So I've just been in here a bit this evening. It's been another one of those occasions when I haven't had a lot of time, so I've done, instead of kind of cracking on with stuff over there, I've decided to make some storage for my nail gun. So I've got my 16 gauge, 18 gauge stapler, 23 gauge. The 15 gauge annoyingly had to hang up like that, so it takes up pretty much as much space as all the rest of them, but I couldn't do like a holster style one where I slot it in that way, because so that diagonal clip, it's basically the same fatness all the way up and down. So like these ones have got a thin bit that will sit on those like wings, but this does not have a thin bit. It's the same width basically all up and down. So, but it's quite nice really, because like, hang on a minute, a bit like when I made my stop block to run in the MatchFit groove when I didn't have much time, and also when I did the the drawer over there with the router bit storage on the sort of separate level and stuff, even though it doesn't slide properly. And doing those things, it's nice to have, like I was talking about the longevity thing, like the stamina thing that Stuart from Proper DIY was saying on long projects. It's nice to have little sub projects to break it up. Like, you know, it's good to be ploughing on with the main thing, getting through it, but it's also nice to do some of the nice little bits here and there. Like I always knew I wanted to store my nails guns there when I had it built and stuff. So it's nice to just kind of break up the kind of the long, big project with smaller bits and pieces. It feels nice from a kind of mental perspective as well, to see things coming together and sort of, you know, see the fruits of your labour a little bit, sort of a little tease of what it's all going to look like when it's finished. So yeah, so I'm quite enjoying these little sort of 2-hour sort of breaks I have in the workshop to do little bits and pieces as well. It's nice. Definitely recommend it if you're considering a bigger project. Plan some kind of mini sub touch points as well to kind of get yourself, you know, some visualization of what it's actually going to look like when it's finished. It keeps you going. It's a nice motivator. So I've had a good old clear out. Most of the stuff from under the bench is about to go to the tip. I haven't got the table saw where it's going to go, so this side's not quite as crowded now. Obviously I still need to do all that. I've even found a spare bit of Henry hose, so if you look under there, running all under the workbench, I've got sort of a 2.5 metre bit Henry hose which goes to this end, and then I had a spare vac adapter that actually, from my old plunge saw, the corded one, that actually works to connect that to that, so I don't have to run that all the way down there every single time I want to use a table saw. Right, something for your consideration, not really a mistake as such, but just something I should have thought about. So I'm making the CLS frame that's going to go underneath the false worktop here that provides the kind of cavity for the horizontal wood storage. This is 63 mils, so I'm going to be going through 63 mils of timber to emerge on the other side and go into some plywood that's 18 mils thick. So I'm going to end up using sort of 80 mil screws just to get 18 mils of hold on the other side. So I should have counterbored holes through. So like I say, not really a mistake, just something I didn't think about, and it's a bit late to do now. But yeah, something to think about if you're doing something similar, perhaps. Well, there we go. I've got a frame for my horizontal sliding wood storage. And I'll tell you what, this thing, the power file, has been out again for a tool that I didn't think I'd use very often. It's actually proving to be quite handy, admittedly, because I'm making a lot of mistakes and it's getting me out of those mistakes. But yeah, it's DeWalt don't make one. If they did, I might be tempted to buy it, although the Ryobi one's doing me absolutely fine. But basically I forgot, well, I didn't forget, but I didn't really clock that I was going to be very close to this socket here. So using the power file to take away some material on the frame, just to be able to kind of get cables. And then when I do the false worktop along here, I'm going to leave a cutout around here so I can get cables through. This side panel will always stay open anyway, so it'll be easy to run cables around it and deal with it. Yeah, it's a bit, like, you look at that, it's a bit wonky, isn't it? It's going in that way, but it's perfectly fine. Annoyingly, every single one of these fixings into the wall went into a mortar line because I drilled the holes first before I really kind of clocked that they were going into mortar. But it's fine, it's sitting on top of these base cabinets, so it doesn't need any shear strength. It's not going to fall downwards like a, you know, something mounted to the wall might. It just needs to stop it coming away, and I cannot pull that away from the wall. I mean, I'm not pulling with all my strength, but it ain't going to come away from the wall. And then it's fixed down into the worktops as well with plenty of screws there. So yeah, that's a decent Sunday's work. And then tomorrow I've got the day off, so I'm gonna start work on the sliding base. I've ended up with, I wanted to have a full 300 mil of clearance here. In the end, it's ended up being like 237 or something. You lose a fair amount for the frame, and obviously I had to stay below the socket. And then by the time I've got the 12 mil base in, it's going to be like, I don't know, 220 or something. It's fine, you know, it's still a good amount of storage under there for wood, you know, long strips of wood. Lengthwise, it's 2.66, I think, we're counting for the frame. So can easily get 2.4 metre lengths of wood in there. Can't get 3 metre lengths in. They'll have to go under the bench if I ever get those in. But yeah, next stop, sliding base. Well, here's one of the more unique parts of this project. I don't imagine anyone else is going to be copying it. This is the sliding bed. It's the wrong way around, but it's going to go under there for my horizontal wood storage. So let me just show you a little bit. I've gone heavy with fixings in the middle, so there's a load of dominoes in there, and then in between every 2 dominoes there's a pocket screw, just because this is only 12mm, which I think is fine once it's on there, but obviously you wouldn't want to, it's not going to be picked up very often. I've had an oversized bit of wood and then cut it down to make these handles because I thought it looked nicer than trying to stick some handles on afterwards. I say it looks nicer, I mean, you know, check out all the burn marks and nicks from the jigsaw and things, but you know, that's my skill level, isn't it? Sliding wings are also fixed on with dominoes and some screws from underneath. I was going to do pocket screws on those as well, but I put the dominoes in first and then realised couldn't actually use them in the jig, so they're fixed in with screws. Let me just show you the general idea. So yeah, this will live under here. This is going to be the worktop piece, but it's not fixed on yet. It's just sitting on there for storage. But the idea is that I can pull it out, have a look at what I've got in terms of long strips of wood. So this is only going to be for long, thin pieces like CLS or long, thin offcuts of MDF and ply. It's not going to be for panels. Panels I'm going to store vertically there by the side of the fridge once I've had a little clear out there. But yeah, long, thin strips and things like that. I can pull it out. The wings are there to kind of prevent it tipping like that, because it will be the underside of the frame, it will hit. But I think I probably will make some legs with a little groove to just slot on there so that I can pull it out, slot the leg on, or 2 legs maybe, and then just leave it while I kind of peruse my wood supply and then slide it back again. So yeah, that's good. I haven't actually checked it fits under there yet, but let's hope it does. The next job is the worktop probably. I'm going to have a bit of an overhang, so I'm going to trim some off here. I'm wondering if I might put a little bit of a back on here, even though it won't be the full width, just to stop wood sliding off the back when I pull it out. I did indeed use the offcut from the worktop piece to make a backer. Another stupid pocket hole mistake with them coming through the bottom. This time it's because this was 18mm and I'm only going into 12, and obviously I used the 18mm screws, blew right through. Thankfully I'd only done a couple by the time I realised, so I switched to the 12mm screws, but the couple were these ones in the middle. So, but it's fine, it seems good enough. It's fine. Now to do the job I forgot about, which is waxing the bottom, which I should really have done whilst it was still in 2 parts before it had anything assembled, but hey ho, that's going to be a lot of waxing. So here's a quick demo just before I put the worktop on here. Slides alright, it's waxed at the bottom, that's waxed at the top. The wings kind of do prevent tipping. I mean, it's not super sturdy. With the weight of wood on here, I definitely think it needs a couple of like clip-on legs that can just hold it while I'm looking at stuff. But you know, for a kind of under worktop solution for horizontal wood storage, I think that's all right. I'm pretty happy with that. And there it is with the worktop on and some actual wood in it. I have had to butcher my little sanding unit a bit. I had to cut off the top wings here because in order to get it fit under where the garage door is. I don't think I'll be mounting it to the wall because it's already plenty high enough just sitting on top of the thing there. But yeah, so I've got some wood in here. I don't think, see if I can pull it out one-handed. I can. So there's some long strips of sheet goods at the back there. Bit of CLS that I ripped in half when I was building the cat house. So yeah, all in all, I'm very happy with how that's turned out. Right, last thing, tantalisingly close to the end, a shelving unit here. It's going to be a pretty simple one. The shelves are complete. Didn't film anything making them because, to be honest, that's probably the first and only part of this entire project where I didn't really make any mistakes, I wouldn't say. Just kind of took it easy. Don't worry about the label. I sort of sanded it a bit. It's nice and smooth. It feels lovely and smooth being sanded, that label. Why don't they use stickers that just peel off? It's so annoying. Anyway, yeah, my little shelf pin jig came in handy for these. This middle one, I had to do them on both sides and I did them the same depth, so the holes have actually met in the middle, but that's a testament to the jig's accuracy, to be honest. There you go, you can see through that on both sides they were exactly lined up. I've got the black and white one, Jessie. She's the most elusive one. She's come to see me. Oh, it was a fleeting visit. Okay, so pretty much the final thing I want to do is, that is obviously all at one level now, that is lower. So I want to make a false top on that to bring it up. And I've got some old pine shelves that I got from my mother-in-law's garage, which I've cut and glued together and sanded and stuff. Incidentally, sanding these took ages. They had some horrible orange kind of finish on them, and you know, I was going at them with not like an underpowered sander, the Metabo 5mm stroke oscillating sander at full whack using 40 grit Abranet Ace HD. So not just Abranet Ace, Abranet Ace HD, the really sort of hard one. And it took me ages just doing these 6 boards, and I was putting a good amount of downward pressure on the sander. And I know people go, oh, you shouldn't be pushing down on the sander, let the tool do the work. Well, if I hadn't been pushing down, I would have been here for even longer, probably double the time. Anyway, forget that. So yes, I want to do that. The slightly annoying thing is that it's not just a case of bringing that up, because it's not quite level. It's very slightly off, and it's only 3mm. That is a 3mm packer at that end, nothing at that end, and you can see it's about right. So I need I need to make that end of the thing 3mm higher than that end. So I'm going to get the laser on and see if I can work out a good way of doing this. All right, this is the method I'm using. So I've got the laser on, lining up with the base and whatnot, and then this is the bit that's going to be the false top. So I'm accounting for the thickness of that. Ruler on top of it, obviously that's just balancing against the wall, but then just taking the reading at both ends. Interestingly, using this method, it's actually 4mm instead of 3mm like it was with the packer under the thing. But you know, that's probably within the tolerance of the spirit level anyway. Okay, laser's back on, and so this piece has ended up being 147 wide. This is 151. It's just catching it at the point where it's going to run there, which is perfect, and obviously slopes away, which is what you want. And then just catching that one again at the point where it's going to be supporting this top. So I think I'm probably good to assemble that. And there it is, just need to wax it and fix it down. It was very slightly high, so I took out the low angle block plane and planed off the bottom edges of the side bits a little. But now the laser, you probably can't see on here, but it is just grazing the edge along there. And when I slide something over, it just touches the edge. You just have a tiny little bump up, probably less than 1 millimeter. And at that distance, it's not exactly going to change it from a 90-degree angle anyway. If I'm cutting anything that long, it can't be that accurate. So yeah, pretty happy. Just going to fix it down and wax it. Time to do a before and after. So let's have a look what this side used to look like. This side of the garage used to just be metal racking, an IKEA unit with batteries and bits and pieces on. And here's what it looks like now. A lovely Mitre saw station, long run of worktop all at the same height, nice bit of extra light, bit more storage on the wall for nail guns, things like that. Here's what it looked like before again, and here's what we've made it into now. Still plenty of wall space there that I could fill something up there in future perhaps, I don't know, but for now don't need it. And I've still got about 10 of these drawers all sitting empty at the moment, so I've got plenty of room to expand into. And let's have a look at the other side. So there we go. The other side used to be all hanging storage for kind of long gardening things, hedge trimmers, stuff like that. And now I have a lovely bit of horizontal wood storage for long strips of wood, some extra cabinets, bit of shelf space, and some vertical space for storing larger panels of sheet goods and my kind of OSB cutting mats. So once again, here's what it used to look like. All just hanging space for gardening things. My old table saw was there. Lots of kind of bulky things. And now a lot neater, nice bit of worktop space, bit of extra wood storage, both horizontal and vertical, and some shelf space. And then my table saw, which is at the end here, has all of this workbench where I used to have my Mitre saw for outfeed. So lovely full sheet size table for outfeed from the table saw. And of course, if I need lots of infeed, I can just open the garage door to get all the infeed as well. So all in all, I am pretty happy with that. Well, you're an absolute trooper for making it this far through the video to the end. So thank you. And as I said a couple of times, I think it's very much therapy for me, this. So I appreciate that there's a lot of self-indulgence here in this video, especially with the length. Final thoughts then. I mean, I love everything. I love the way it's turned out. You know, the space in here is more usable. It's just feels more airy and open and just more like a workshop than it used to now, and less like a garage, which I love. The cost, so the biggest cost was the shed. The shed was £1,300 from Costco for that shed, and getting someone to do the base for me was about 350 quid. That will clear that area and do the base was about 350 quid. This is up here in Cheshire, where I am, by the way, in the UK, and this is in 2024. I could have done the base myself, I suppose, the concrete, but it was a messy job, and I'm happy to pay someone else to do that, to be perfectly honest with you. So the shed was easily the biggest cost. The plywood ended up being 7 sheets of 18mm plywood. This is hardwood plywood, well, what Wicks call hardwood plywood. 7 sheets of 18mm, 5 sheets of 12mm, and 2 sheets of 6mm or 5.5mm, I think it was. Total cost was about 480 quid, I think, something like that, for the plywood. So again, not cheap. Could have got it a bit cheaper NDS, but it wasn't much. It was only about a tenner per sheet difference, so it wouldn't have been it would have been a saving, of course it would. But I like that it's plywood. I'm pleased I did it in plywood, so I'm happy with that money. Other final thoughts. I mean, as much as I've just said, I love it being plywood. I really don't like the smell of plywood being cut, that kind of horrible burning smell you get cutting plywood. But you know, it is what it is. I'm happy with it, how it looks. The cordless Milwaukee track saw has been amazing. I like using it, even though breaking down plywood was quite an arduous task in this. You know, the amount I had to do, and it got to me a bit at points. Just, you know, the monotony of breaking down sheets of plywood. If I'd had my old corded track saw, my old Titan, it just would have been horrible. Whereas the cordless Milwaukee is such a pleasure to use compared to that old corded one. So very happy I've got that, and happy it runs on DeWalt batteries, of course, as well. Just storing, even when the wood was cut down, just storing the amount of wooden bits that needed assembling around was quite a challenge in itself. I mean, if I was doing it now with everything done, I would have more flat surfaces and stuff, but still, that was quite tricky. If you're doing something of a similar size, just have a think about where you're going to store all the flat pieces. And then, I mean, I guess the number one thing is just the bloody pocket hole depth. Just the number of times I broke through the bottom of things, you know, with sinking the pocket screws too far. I really need to just have that stock collar a lot lower than I think, a lot shallower than I think. So that's kind of something I'm going to be very cautious of, I think, in future. But I'm really glad I did this. I think I already made the point earlier, but the thing about breaking it up with smaller bits, you know, like the stop block I did, the router stuff, the nail gun storage, breaking up big projects, long run, because this took me 2 months. It was about August and September of 2024, most of those months, maybe even a little bit of July. Breaking up those big projects with smaller things along the way that are different or just nicer to look at or kind of more finished, it's a really kind of important facet, I think, of doing that. So yeah, I'll definitely be planning to break it up if I do something like this again, I think. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This video has been, you know, far too long, I get that, but I just wanted to get all of these thoughts out. I wanted to make sure that I communicated everything I wanted to communicate, and yes, that probably hasn't come across as the best video, but if you watched it to the end, as I say, you're a trooper, you're a saint. Thank you very much, and yeah, genuinely thank you for watching.